Anyway, like I was saying, we want to bridge the gap. So, how do we do that? One way to bridge the gap is to do what I said just a couple of minutes ago. Instead of saying all men are trash, why don't you just call out the behavior that you don't like? When my son was 3 years old, I would impress upon him that you need to wash your hands when you leave the bathroom. Instead of saying you're trash for not washing your hands, I would just lead him back into the bathroom and say, Bubba, let's wash your hands. We must wash your hands so that we are clean and don't spread germs, right? If the lady didn't want to be catcalled, instead of calling all men trash, she should have said something like, being catcalled makes me feel terrified for my life, and makes me also feel like trash, or something like that, along that line, like when you hear X, Y, and Z on the street, it although you all feel like it is flattering for a woman who is insecure, or a woman who is alone on a street in a foreign place, this can be scary or frightful. Something like that. I don't know. I don't feel this way. I just feel like it's kind of normal to be catcalled. The guys are working. It's a beautiful woman outside. It's a nice distraction. That's how I take it. But yeah, you instead of getting on these panels and degrading each other's mental health, like, why don't we really try to talk to each other the way that we would talk to our children when we were bringing them up? Like, a lot of us need to re teach ourselves because we weren't properly taught as children, and I get that. But it gets annoying when you guys get up here on these panels and have these talking points, and you guys don't really even know where these talking points come from, you know? And why you didn't have the right to vote, and what that meant for other men around you who also didn't have the right to vote because they weren't wealthy, they didn't, and I mean wealthy, they didn't pay taxes, they didn't own property. So you and a man who didn't pay taxes and didn't own property, y'all were in the same boat. And even though there was a gap in time where they had the right to vote and you didn't, what did you suffer? You know? Was it a life-changing event like, the Holocaust or slavery? Because that's how a lot of you women act. A lot of you women act as if you all were all slaves, and, let's be honest. You know, white women weren't enslaved. They were the enslavers, you know? You didn't have the right to vote, but you had the right to own a slave. So when a lot of you women are like, "We didn't have the right to vote. We didn't have the right to vote." Yeah, but those women that didn't have the right to vote when you were a slave, you're talking as if you and them have the same dichotomy in life. Mm, I don't know. It's it's a conundrum. Like, I'm just trying to figure out all this red pill, all this blue pill, all this black pill, why people call me a pick me, why people are so mad at me sometimes when I get on these panels and try to drag me for filth, when I'm just trying to advocate for people in my life that I love that happen to be male. Again, my dad, my brother, my husband, my son. So here's the takeaway: men are trash is a phrase born from real hurt and real injustice. At its best, it shines light on systematic problems. At its worst, it can make people shut their ears and just walk away from these panels to begin with, because I actually think that the panels are a sign that men actually don't want to walk away, but that they are on the very end of seeing any purpose in women at all. Like, so it's like we could turn this around, ladies. We could turn this around, but if we keep this up, we are about to push them off of the edge and they're never going to come back, you know? So if we want change, we have to call out what is harmful. Calling men trash is harmful, okay? But we must also have we like when we if we are replacing the phrase men are trash, we have to also invite people to feel comfortable saying what they have a problem with, like pointing out the cat calling. I think many, if you just stick to what the problem is and not, you know, uh, and not try to catastrophize or size an event. If you don't do that, if you don't make a catastrophe out of being catcalled and you just call out the improper behavior, you'll have more luck. The goal isn't to win the fight. The goal is to change the culture of catcalling. The culture of calling women bitches, or the culture of whatever you think oppresses you as a woman. If we just stick to the behavior that's harmful, I feel like we could have a better dialogue with the men and start to change and turn this stuff around. So I'll leave you with this. When you hear men are trash, do you hear an attack? Do you hear a cry for help? And more importantly, how will you respond to the phrase men are trash? Because I know that when I hear men are trash, from especially from a young woman or a man that consider himself a feminist, I'm gonna have to assume that you were very poorly treated by a man in your past, and that you are just operating from a space of hurt, and that you have some therapy to seek. That's my take on it, Rosebuds. I'd love to hear your take on it down in the comments. I'm going to leave you all with this little clip that kind of shows, women in the 2020s acting as if they are the woman in this here picture. Okay. Votes for women. This is back when women couldn't vote at all, right? Um, and this little clip that I'm about to close out with is going to show you all women in the 2020s acting as if they are as oppressed, if at all, as the women from before 1918. Because this is allegedly when this photo was taken. 1918. You're about to hear women in the 2020s speak as if it is 1918. Go figure.
Because you're on the show with the cocktails with the queens. And there's a reason for that. It wasn't to have you defend or not defend Donald Trump. It was about, I care about what's in this contract with Black America for women. And it's not, we're not mentioned at all in the contract with Black America. And
you are mentioned. I mean, when you mention Black people, you mentioning Black women. So don't count yourself out.
No, yes, that's
not true. That's like administration said that when they
Black people is not Black women. Black
true.
women are not included in Black people.
No,
Come on,
it's
ladies.
but that's like, that's like you saying, that's like when the president says minorities, then he's including Black people. But we all know that that's not the case. Black women have specific needs that are not also being met. And we also feel that there should be some things that are specific to us and our plight as well. And
I understand that.
I feel like as a black man, you can lead.
No,
I feel like
well,
I just
offered y'all to write a section up for it. I just said I don't mind if you guys help us. If you guys help us write a section. No, I've been open to all kind of experts in putting this together. It wasn't just me. We dealt with experts in all fields of this contract with Black America. So we
when I was reading this, when I was reading about the suffragettes and how basically these feminist women back in the day, they were advising young women about marriage, and then I came across these 8 pieces of advice. It made me think of this incident with Ice Cube, Vivica Fox, and all of them. I mean, just hearing, you know, I could hear them in my head cackling at him, and it was like you can see him shutting down and saying, like, "You all can help and contribute. I'm saying that I'm asking for your help." And he's still trying to be productive. And in that, you see Vivica Fox, like, really, you know. And it's like, if you care, then you should contribute. So if you care enough to think or say men are trash, then you should contribute to helping them become better. Or not being trash yourself.